Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. We are continuing in our prehistory journey through time and space and places and all this great stuff. So this week we hopped from our hominids discussion that we had last week. And if you don't know how we did the little switcheroo, go watch the last episode. We talked a few minutes about why we switched a couple of the orderings that we had talked about earlier. We went ahead and made that switch just for continuity, and I'm really happy we did because it made a lot more sense to my daughter. Moving through the time as it happened instead of having to jump around. Go watch that last video. We talked about that up at the beginning.
Right. And as always, we're happy to share the combination with proof of purchase of the curriculum. You can email us and we'll share the Excel with you.
Absolutely. So this week, because we were studying the Ice Age, we focused basically on the Ice Age's impact on North America because that was acutely interesting. The fact that where we were sitting right now, there was a mile of ice above us, which is always very interesting. The look and the feel of that, what that meant. And then early North America, Neanderthal and Homo sapien movements and lifestyles through that time period, because we had multiple different types of hominids in that time frame, and we wanted to make sure we talked about all of them at that time as the Ice Age was going through. So shall we get into it?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Our honorable mentions from last episode, because they are very valuable again, is our early man.
Early humans from Eyewitness.
And then also When We Became Humans, again, very valuable. We talked about them extensively in the last episode. Go check that out if you want to. But we, again, pulled heavily from these books.
This is one to invest in. This is a really good one.
Absolutely. So hopping into our first one, we have DK Find Out the Stone Age.
DK, which of course makes the Eyewitness books as well. This is another book that's focusing, it doesn't focus completely on all, like Eyewitness books do, on all real artifacts and things, but it does have a fair bit of that mixed in with some renderings and things.
Especially if you were going to cover some of the megafauna. As we were focusing on North America, we had some megafauna, big mammoths, sloths, big, cats, a ton of big animals that were on the mainland here. Again, another great way to go ahead and visualize that. This was very much at my daughter's level.
Well, right. And
I would say it's even simpler than, say, like an Eyewitness book.
Exactly. So that was just what I was going to say. If you like the Eyewitness style, but that's, of course, not meant for, this earlier elementary age, they have a few in the Find Out series, but this one is totally applicable. And I'm really happy that we have this book because it's just a great... it's at her level and it's not too long each page. Again,
some content carries over into the following weeks. Obviously, we have the cave painting. That would be for, I think, 2 weeks from now when we talk prehistoric art. So again, another book to kind of have sitting next to your other spines that you can carry through a number of weeks and keep coming back to it. Having those books there and then you just keep going back to the same 3 or 4 or 5 books really makes it easy on you as a parent when you're doing the education. You're not like hopping around. You can make a couple really good decisions on picking up a few books that you're going to use over and over again to help tell that story to your young one.
And you also don't have to plow through this entire book in 1 week, which is also a bonus.
No, absolutely. So next one. So because we were focused on North America, we went ahead and got a cool book called The Turtle Island, The Story of North America's First People.
Yeah.
So really fun kind of book. It's a little bit more dense than I think our daughter would be able to handle, but it covers a very large span of time.
She was able to do it. We didn't read the whole book,
no,
but it does. It's kind of a neat mix. It tells basically each spread is a different animal,
different kind of concept, and then if that concept applied to a story that pertained to some native people's history or mythology. They went ahead and told you that story as well.
The story parts were really good, and our daughter really did connect with those pieces.
Like for example, this one is what were the animals like? So we went ahead and told you about that. And then on the left side, it talked a little bit about like beavers and why those were important to the native people and stuff. So really interesting, a little bit more of like a denser reading. And then I think towards the end, it gets a little bit more into modern Native Americans, more like in the last 1,000 years as opposed to 50,000 years or 10 or 15,000 years ago when they first crossed Beringia into North America, whether they walked through the mainland of Canada or if they sailed along the shore, don't know. Some really good videos on how they got there. This was very nice. It was a nice little kind of deviation and allowed us to have that kind of intentional focus on North America.
So if you're studying this, you're in the United States or you're in Canada and you want something that talks about Indigenous peoples, this is really a great book. but probably best if you have an older learner. If you are doing Blossom and Root as a third grade, as the third grade science extension, this might be more applicable. Or if you have an older learner that's coming along with you, this would be a great book. And so we wanted to talk about it from that perspective.
Maisie Mammoth's memoirs. Obviously, we hear a lot of stories. First people, we have stories, Child Through Time that we're about to get to. But who tells the story of the mammoth?
So this actually a listener wrote into us and said, you have to get this book for your prehistory study. So we went out and bought it. It has such great pictures, and this is totally at our daughter's level. So it's got really great illustrations.
It starts off very dramatically, and when you want to learn how to defrost a woolly mammoth who maybe has fallen into the water and frozen for 40,000 years. Poor Buttercup. That's Maisie's best friend. She happened to fall into the water, and now she's being thawed by researchers. This is very fun and very playful. The first 5 or 6 pages are really just kind of telling about Maisie and the mammoth and her mammoth friends, and kind of the idea of studying those time periods. And then it gets into a spread where each spread is a different animal. And then it just continues that all the way through to the end, and it just tells very fun, very playful.
I mean, look how playful.
Very similar to the drawings that we see in When We Were Humans.
Saber-toothed salmon. Who is a saber-toothed salmon? I mean, these are great. These are great.
Back
drawings.
when salmon fought back.
Right.
Yes. So really fun, very enjoyable, absolutely worth checking out. Very similar drawings and styles as. Do you remember those books we did in the Around the World Journey?
Yes, it's the adventures
and
what is
the
it?
Wonders.
What is it?
It was the red and yellow
Atlas.
book.
The Adventure Atlas.
It was the red and yellow book. That's
Atlas of Adventures.
Yes.
Atlas of Adventures.
Very similar art style as that, where it's kind of playful and fun, similar to the When We Became Humans. I like this style.
This is much more appropriate, I think, for that first, second grade age.
Yep.
This is one of the more applicable books that we found.
Yep. So Maisie Mammoth's memoirs, very fun.
Very cute.
Kind of a shout out to a book, A Child Through Time. I think we talked about this
book. Our daughter's already been through this book twice, just
because
because she's so interested in it. This book is fantastic because every spread focuses on a different child in a different area of the world in a different time period. And it starts with Taya a child living during the last ice age. So it talks all about her, what she's wearing.
That her house was made out of mammoth bones.
Right, and it kind of shows her community, what her life was like. Yep. It's really great. This is the only spread that talks about prehistory, but the rest of it's going to go, we're going to be using this again and again as we go
through ancient
times.
Middle Ages, kind of time.
Right, a child living during the time of the Black Death.
Yeah.
So anyways, this is one of those books that we're going to be showing some in the coming weeks as we start getting into early history.
We have a bunch of these. We have the City Through Time, Child Through Time, Street Through Time. We have a bunch of these, and they're very, very helpful, very fun,
they're
very
all
visual.
Good. And what I like about these kind of books, this is another DK
book.
Yeah. What I love about these books is that these are a great book to invest in because we're going to be able to use these through all of our elementary history. And okay, you're only reading a few pages, but there's this great through line. And just like children like me, when we did the Around the World study, our kids seem to connect so much better with the stories of other children and what their lives were like. So what their lives are like in other countries now, but also what their lives were like through time. So this is a real gem of a book, and we're going to be using this a lot in ancient history.
Worth checking out. Just to take a look at it, see if it's something you might.
This one.
Yeah, I know.
We bought it. I'm so happy we did.
Yeah,
we're going to be using it for years to come, so we wanted to show it to you, even though it only has one page. It's applicable for
chapter
today.
Book, honorable mention. We mentioned this during the dinosaurs. Could you survive?
Right, it's a choose
your own adventure. The Cretaceous and the Jurassic. Embedded in the middle of this is Could You Survive the Ice Age? We didn't get to this, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew about it.
We're kind of busy.
Yeah, we're kind of busy. And, doing education and stuff.
Yeah, we didn't get to this one. But I kind of have a feeling we will get back to this at some point because our daughter loves Choose Your Own Adventure. And the next time she wants one, we'll be like, hey, let's go to the Ice Age.
Just to know that this is a good, we talked about the absence of chapter books through most of this and how, trying to fill these in. Here's another one where we can put a chapter book in. It was hard to put a chapter book in about dinosaurs or something like that.
But there were, and this one had, Could You Survive the Jurassic, the Cretaceous, Could You Survive the Stone Age? There's a bunch of these. So check them out at your library. Or we were able to get this 3-pack for $6 and it has all 3 books in it. So
it's worth picking up.
Think about that.
The chapter book we had this week is Maru and the Winter Cave. So we went ahead and pulled this book in.
Yes, we made a big change. So here's our problem. We didn't have a chapter book. Obviously, what we could have done, we were supposed to do the Choose Your Own Adventure. The thing is that Meru is based in the Ice Age. And so we felt like, are we really going to wait another week to get to it?
Well, the other call-out book was The Boy in the Painted Cave.
No, and so we pulled out we have another book called The Boy of the Painted Cave, or In the Painted Cave.
Of the Painted Caves.
Of the Painted Caves? Okay. Anyway, where he's an artist, and that's the kind of the main thread of that story. And we're going to be doing prehistoric art in a couple of weeks, and we thought like,
put it there.
That would be better there. So we decided instead that we would move Meru in the Winter Caves up to this week. What this means in the curriculum is that there is a section of vocabulary and discussion questions for Meru.
From the Build Your Library.
Build Your Library. This is all Build Your Library. This is the Build Your Library main reader book, main chapter book. So there's a section every day starting in week 5. So this is just week 5 and 6. You're supposed to read it for 2 weeks. So there's a section there that says vocabulary and discussion for Meru, and then copy work. And those 2 sections are from this. And you'll need to look at those as you go through the chapters and read Meru. But none of the rest of the stuff that you're going to read in Build Your Library for those days, or at any activities that you would do, actually pertain to Meru. It's just those 2 sections. So that's what we did. We just looked at the vocab and the copy work and moved this forward because it said in the Ice Age, and we wanted to get to that other book, which, spoiler alert, we really like that other book, and I'm glad that we pulled this forward. So that's a little explanation on Meru.
So Meru is a daughter in a clan that lives in the caves. Wow, shocking. She lives in the winter caves, and they're basically coming out of winter. It's very cold. They're kind of on the edge of the... I don't know exactly where. It's not really specified, but you can imagine it kind of being North America on the edge of some cave network, almost like a Washington or Oregon location. And then they go to the ocean, and they spend the summer there, getting fed back up and fattened back up. And then they make the journey back to the caves, and troubles ensue and chaos ensue. And Meru and her brother Otak have to do a wild journey and have to survive in order to save their family. So it's really, really good, really, really tense. About 135 pages. You're doing about a chapter, maybe 2 chapters a day, depending on the Build Your
5 days
Library.
a week.
Yeah, Build Your Library plan. Some chapters are like 3 or 4 pages, and so she bundles those into a double read for the one day. But most of the time, you're reading about 10 pages a day. I can do this while my daughter's doing copy work. She's doing her writing work. Maybe she's doing some math problems on a workbook or something of that nature, and I can read while she's doing that. Really nice. Also, I can read during dinner. Breakfast, and then at nighttime. So you can definitely get this done at multiple times. It was not a very heavy lift. No. And normally I'm not the one doing the readings.
Yeah, he doesn't usually do the chapter book.
Ariel normally does that, but you were ill, you had a cough, and it was hard for her to read to her overnight. So I had to somehow figure out how to fit this in. So really good book, enjoyed it. Like this book, I felt like it was right at my daughter's level. There was enough suspense, enough cliffhangers that got her through to the next chapter. The writing isn't super, dense. The reading's very easy.
And I thought she really understood this very well. I thought this was fine for a first grade level.
She was asking for me to read it. If she wanted me to come back, what's
very
happening in Meru?
curious.
What's happening in Meru?
And it started to translate into our daughter's imaginative games together. They've been out in the backyard. We've had a couple of sunny days. And they've been out setting up their cave. And they've been, making tools and stuff like that.
Well, and that goes right into the activities that we had this week. We did some napping. So they talked about shaping tools using other rocks. So we went on a hike, and we found some rocks, and they were like trying to chip off looks, and my daughter actually got a piece off. She goes, "Daddy, look, I knocked a piece off."
It's itty bitty tiny piece. And then she was super excited.
And then we went ahead, and Meru had to light a couple fires using rubbing sticks. So we watched a few videos on how to do that, and then she practiced how to do that. And she also had a horn with fire inside of it. So we watched a video about how to keep a fire embers going. So they were hiking through the mountains, and she was out. They had to make like an ice house, kind of out of the snow, and then they went inside and they restarted the fire from the horn. That was really cool. She was like, "What is that? Why does the horn have fire in it?" So she was interested in that as well, and then throwing the spears because there was a lot of hunting. Now, there is some animal-related murder, kill. If that upsets you, or if you have
they're hunting, right?
They're hunting, and they describe it, and also like they're having this. There's a scene where they're scaring away wolves who have attacked a deer, and so that because they're starving and they need to get some food, they scared away the wolves, and they were essentially picking up the pieces of the deer And I don't know if that would, make you uncomfortable, but that is in there as well. So there's a lot of
Yeah, be prepared.
starvation. There's a lot of hunger. There's a lot of
It's overall though, it's not
very
it's not a
real.
heavy. Well, it's
No,
not a heavy tale though.
no. Those are very, very minor points. I mean, towards the end, the stakes go way up. Oh, there is death in here as well. Her father passes away. Spoilers. And another person gets injured. So it is, pretty real and authentic. But just be aware, it's not a gruesome thing. It just happens, and then
No, but it was just more of like this was the reality of their lives.
Yeah.
Our daughter was always interested in reading it and never felt like it was scary or gross or
No.
anything like that. She felt it was fine.
She was really more like on the edge of her seat.
But if you have a very sensitive learner or sensitive about those things, we just wanted to give you the note.
Give you the note, absolutely. And then movies we watched this week, the Oscar-winning AFI top 10, Ice Age with Manny and all the guys.
You couldn't not
Sid
watch
the
Ice
Sloth.
Age, right?
Yeah, and we have
Our kids love
we have Ice Age,
Scratch,
Ice Age 1, Ice Age 2, Ice Age 3. We have all the Ice Ages, so we were able to. We actually got it in because I was driving to my mom's, and it was an hour there, an hour back. I'm like, this is homeschool.
Every time we
on the
go
road.
into the car, we're like,
Drop down the monitor. And we're gonna do a little
We're doing
homeschool.
Ice Age.
We're doing Ice Age while we drive.
So the kids really loved it. I think it's perfect for this time.
Yep.
And it's nice to balance, we're reading about a lot of reality with a lot of lighthearted fun. So
Yep.
Ice Age was a good pick for this
On
week.
top of that, there were a bunch of wonderful Eons videos that were in
As
the
always
curriculum.
with Blossom and Root.
Very fun. The Eons videos are great. Also, if you are interested, the Eons shorts on YouTube are also very, very fun, very addicting. I have found myself watching a number of those just in my own spare time.
Not totally prehistory related.
No, they're just kind of smattering. Well, I mean, if you're going through the curriculum right now, you'll have realized that Blossom and Root uses a lot of Eons videos. She points to a lot of them, and they're all very good. But this time now we're in this Ice Age time period. There's also a lot of shorts involved as well, and those are just all across the board, on topic wise. But I've just been enjoying watching more of the content that they produce.
It's interesting because we watch YouTube
Yeah.
on our TV with our YouTube account, but it's for homeschool. So the algorithm is very confused about what we
Cooking
like
videos
and don't like.
and some Eons videos and some latest trailers for movies.
It's kind
Just
of all
all
over
over
the
the
map.
place.
So oftentimes it recommends new things to us based on our homeschooling. I'm sure you don't know what we're talking about at all.
Absolutely not. So we did the Ice Age. We studied and we focused mainly on North America. We hope you had a good week. We are heading on to Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens. So Neanderthals. So finally,
so hard to break that 90s Neanderthal, right? I think I think it was because you could only read it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a YouTube video where National Geographic was saying
They can explain it to
Neanderthal,
you.
and then you could go, oh, you could only see it, and you're like, oh, that's a th.
So we focused on North America. Next week we're going back to Africa and just talking about that heartbeat of life that just came out of that eastern section of Africa, and then pushed us and Homo sapiens all around the world into Europe, into Asia, into the Far East. It's a wonderful time period. We're gonna have a lot of fun next week. So we'll see you then.